WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Opposition political parties and groups in Guinea brace up for another nationwide demonstration over failed talks with the government. Election observatory groups in Sierra Leone make recommendations as the electoral umpire finalizes the results.
We urge the Electoral Commission to conduct a thorough post-election review at a suitable time and also encourage consideration for the establishment of appropriate domestic mechanisms of recommendations offered by our group and other observer groups.
In Côte d'Ivoire, the authority launches measures to avoid a new crisis ahead of the regional and municipal elections. And the International Labour Organization urges Liberia to recognize the rights of public sector workers to freely join or form trade unions. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imoh Edet with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Let's begin in Guinea, where the opposition political parties are threatening to call for new street demonstrations at the end of the month-long truce, which ends next week. The coalitions of opposition political parties and social forces say they have received no proposals from the government during this period to ease the social-political tension. Sources say that the religious leaders mediating between the opposition and the government could resume mediation next week. Tawfiq Abdul Nasser has more details in this report.
For socio-political opposition players, in almost a month of truce, neither the government nor the religious leaders mediating in the socio-political crisis have made contact with them. To attract attention, the opposition is threatening to take to the street again. The former ruling RPG party, now part of opposition coalition, says all legal options will be put on the table to force the ruling military to talk to them. Guinea social forces have announced that consultations are underway to define new strategies for waging their struggle. For the moment, there has been no reaction from the religious leaders mediating in this social-political crisis. According to one source, they are preparing to relaunch talks next week.
Tawfiq Abdul Nasser reporting there. Well, last Saturday's election in Sierra Leone has been lauded by the African Union, ECOWAS and the Commonwealth Electoral Observation Groups, especially citizens who turn out to vote in the general polls. Speaking at the joint press conference in Freetown on Monday, the head of missions said that they were impressed by the significant turnout of voters and the largely peaceful conduct of elections. WDL's Freetown correspondent Patrick Salia report.
All three of the heads of mission, Helen Nariam, De Salem Bosch, Mohamed Ibn Chambers, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in different ways confirmed that such display is a testimony of citizens' will to consolidate the democratic gains of the country. They commended the Electoral Commission for managing a largely peaceful elections day and the timely implementation of legal provisions, except for the clamor around the provision of disaggregated voter register as requested by opposition parties. Head of the Commonwealth Electoral Observatory Group, Professor Osinbajo, like his colleagues, said there were, however, challenges in the electoral process.
We noted reported communication and transparency challenges and some mistrust in the Electoral Commission and other key state institutions, including the judiciary. There were isolated incidents of skirmishes, police arrests, attacks on polling officers and political party agents, and harassment in some cases of law enforcement officers.
The Electoral Commission, he said, had provided various assurances of its preparedness and readiness to conduct the elections as scheduled, and pointed out that the Commission received the requisite funding and on time to conduct the elections. But the EC was challenged in delivering all of its promises, they said.
We urge the Electoral Commission to exercise maximum transparency. We also recommend that results at the police station level be published to allow for proper verification by party agents. We urge the Electoral Commission to conduct a thorough post-election review at a suitable time and also encourage consideration for the establishment of appropriate domestic mechanisms of recommendations offered by our group and other observer groups. We recommend additional training for polling staff to minister in the future.
In every election cycle, Sierra Leone has seen an increase in both domestic and international observation missions and their subsequent reports containing pertinent recommendations ahead of the next general elections. Meanwhile, Chief Electoral Commissioner Mohamed Kone has released 60% of nationwide presidential results tallied as of Monday afternoon.
Bio Julius Mada, Sierra Leone People's Party, 1,067,666. Kamara Samora Matthew Wese, All People's Congress, 783,751.
President Bio has, however, in a national televised address, called for calm amidst mounting tensions.
Patrick Salia there in Freetown. Well, let's remain with Patrick. We spoke with him a couple of minutes ago, who is at the Situation Room on the update and expectations of the population and the recent event that took place at the opposition APC headquarters.
Well, it's an environment mixed with anxiety and celebrations in some quarters, depending on whom you speak to or approach during and after the announcement of that 60% of the results yesterday. For the two main political parties, the stalwarts especially, those who are in the mainstream of their political parties, both are, the APC claiming victory. Well, for some analysts, they are doing so as a mind game in case the result turns the other way, so that it becomes a recipe for chaos, and people tend to believe that they were rogued in the entire process.
Well, Patrick, there was an issue the other day at the headquarters of the opposition APC. So this led to the death of at least one supporter. Bring us up to speed with that. And we also understand that police also dispersed supporters yesterday with tear gas. Tell us, what is the situation like there? What really transpired?
On the day of voting, after close of polls, political parties have their hubs, their situation rooms, where they compile their own results. Remember, they have their agents sent out on polling day to monitor the elections process. So they feed these situation rooms with the results from the various polling stations and centers. The situation room reports they have gathered so far sends a message to them that they are in whatever footing they are. So when the votes closed on Saturday, the APC and the SLPP organized their press conferences at the APC office, which was later in the evening. But what the police had said in their press release dated yesterday was that there were people who were obstructing passers-by, including law enforcement officials. They were disturbing the peace, so they had to put the crowd under control. They had to put such situation under control. Hence, while the press conference was underway at the party's headquarters, so they had to fire tear gas to disperse such disturbances. So that led to, possibly, we cannot confirm whether there was death, but there is no public knowledge so far about someone dying from that incident. But we heard gunshots from that end of the seat of the capital.
Well, Patrick, so what are we expecting in the coming days, and when is the EC supposed to conclude in the announcement of the remaining 40% results?
Well, remember, tomorrow, which is Wednesday, is a public holiday, Eid holidays in Sierra Leone, like in other parts of the world. So the ECSL is speculated to come out with the remaining 40% of the results today.
Patrick Salia there in Freetown.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And to more stories now, the Ivorian mediator has launched a large-scale awareness campaign 2 months ahead of the regional and municipal elections. The mediator is concerned about the recurrence of the 2010-2011 post-election crisis that killed at least 3,000 people, a memory that remains with Ivorians 13 years later. Abdullah Hassan report.
Across Côte d'Ivoire, tension is rising ahead of the September 2, 2023 regional and municipal elections. To avoid the dramatic memories of the past, the mediator of the Republic is launching a 3-day workshop, a campaign for peaceful local elections. Among other recommendations is the drafting of an election procedure manual, the organization of a capacity-building workshop for members of the Council of State on the conduct of elections, and information on the time limits for contesting elections from the proclamation of the results. These recommendations will enable the magistrates to play their roles perfectly during these elections. Patrice Yao Kwako is the president of the Council of State. He says, we have to decide between the candidates and reassure voters that the ballot will be credible, sincere, and an honest expression of the electorate. This initiative aims to take preventive action to preserve peace and social cohesion, thanks to the involvement of the regulators' 14 representations spread across the country and another 197 watch committees. Adama Tunkara is a mediator of the Republic. He says, these two bodies will be going out to raise awareness among the population, that is to say, traditional chiefs, religious leaders, women, youth, civil society, and political players, to ensure that the elections are peaceful and non-violent. This meeting will enable us to get our political players to sign what we call a Charter of Commitment to Peace. These awareness-raising meetings, which will lead to a commitment to peace on the part of the political players, will take place over a period of 2 months throughout the country.
Abdullah Hassan filed a report. Well, civil society organizations in Ghana, including the Africa Center for Energy Policy, are raising questions about the lease of the nation's prized asset, the Tema oil refinery, worth $700 million to a private company. According to the CSOs, the refinery will be leased to Renco Asset Management Group for $22 million for 6 years and is expected to refine up to 8 million barrels annually. Established in January 2023, the CSOs argue that the local Ghanaian company lacks a track record in the petroleum business and cannot effectively take over the state oil refinery. In Accra, Atiawin Bila Lawson report.
The Tema Oil Refinery, TOR, a crucial entity in Ghana's energy sector, has faced significant challenges in recent years, including operational inefficiencies, financial constraints, and the need for infrastructure upgrades. Recognizing the urgency to address these issues, TOR's management in a statement disclosed that it embarked on an extensive evaluation of potential solutions. It said after careful consideration and rigorous analysis, the management team concluded that the Torrentco deal offers the most promising path forward. However, the coalition of CSOs is against the deal, saying it lacks transparency and that the private company lacks the right competencies to handle such a critical asset. Benjamin Boache, the CEO of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, spoke on behalf of the coalition.
That doesn't mean that we just wake up and hand the company over to anybody that shows up with interest without ensuring that that company is capable, has the resources, and can guarantee the people of Ghana that they can actually manage the assets.
An energy strategist, Dr. Suleimana Yusuf, believes this presents an opportunity for the management of the Tema Oil Refinery to come clear on the terms and details of the deal.
The champions of the deal, for sure, will have to take this advantage, to come out clear and then explain, to just make sure that the stakeholders who are coming out with this outcry, in fact, not even civil society organizations, I think even the union guys from the refinery, they equally are experiencing some bit of misgivings with respect to the whole thing.
The Ministry of Energy says no contract has been signed between TOR and its potential partner, Torrentco. The ministry insists that even though there are ongoing negotiations between the state agency and the organization, nothing has been finalized. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
The International Labour Organization ILO has expressed displeasure over Liberia's refusal to recognize the rights of public sector workers to freely join or form trade unions. Gilbert Tungbo, ILO Director General, explained that the country is the only ECOWAS and AU member state yet to do so, despite mounting local and international pressure. As WDL's Ellington Popper in Monrovia reports, the Liberian government, as until now, gave no reason why public sector workers cannot unionize.
International Labour Organization Director General is calling on the Liberian authority to desist from suppressing public sector workers and allow them to unionize in line with the labor laws and international protocols. He said the government should ensure that all workers can exercise their labor rights under the convention, thereby respecting their fundamental rights of freedom of association and expression, among others.
Register the National Health Workers Union of Liberia as a trade union organization without further delay and provide additional information to the Committee of Experts on any pending allegations. review the Decent Work Act and any other related legislation to ensure that all workers are able to exercise the right to form or join a trade union of their choice, and in particular ensure that public sector workers and civil servants enjoy the rights and guarantees set out in the convention.
Speaking on behalf of the Liberian Authority, Deputy Labour Minister Hannah Kwabo assured that her government will work to ensure the implementation of the ILO conventions, promising to restore the rights of public sector workers to unionize.
The government of Liberia takes note of the committee's recommendation on 87, and the government is committed in implementing 87 of the ILO conventions. We look forward to ILO technical support, ensuring that 87 of the ILO conventions is implemented. And we also look forward to considering our laws and ensuring that the health workers and all civil servants are unionized. And we look forward to a good working relationship to this committee.
Public sector workers are for now watching to see if the government will match its words with actions. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Opposition political parties and groups in Guinea brace off for another nationwide demonstration over failed talks with the government. Election observatory groups in Sierra Leone make recommendations as the electoral umpire finalizes the results. In Côte d'Ivoire, the authority launches measures to avoid a new crisis ahead of the regional and municipal elections. And of course, the International Labour Organization urges Liberia to recognize the rights of public sector workers to freely join or form trade unions. And still ahead, we do have a guest interview segment, newspaper review, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
It's 16 minutes past the top of the hour here in Dakar. Don't forget you can listen to us live on WADR.org and watch our live streams on Facebook and YouTube on WADR News. Ivorian cocoa farmers are worried that above average rain in most of its regions last week has flooded plantations and could affect the start of the next October to March main crop. The world's top cocoa producer is in its rainy season, which runs officially from April to mid-November. Downpours are usually abundant and heavy during this time. Ogeberika completes the story.
Several farmers said rain had caused flooding that barred them from accessing their crops. They said the weather could lead to diseases and that there was a lack of sunshine. According to the farmers, more heavy rain could hinder the start of the next main crop as it would knock flowers from trees, while the April to September mid-crop was tailing off with low yields. Cocoa farmer Asen Kowao lamented that rain falls frequently, subsequently preventing farmers from going to the fields because rivers have broken their banks and there is flooding. Kowao farms near the eastern region of Apenguru, where 206.3 millimeters of rain fell last week, 153 millimeters above the 5-year average. Rainfall was unusually high in other cocoa-growing parts of the country. The western region of Suba recorded 119 millimeters last week, 65.7 millimeters above the average. The southern region of Agboville had 146.2 millimeters of rainfall, 87 millimeters above the average. In the southern region of Divo, where 57.8 millimeters of rain fell, 18.5 millimeters above the average, farmers said they were concerned the showers would damage new flowers and hinder the start of the next main crop. However, in the central regions of Bongwanu and Yamoussoukro, where rains were also above average, farmers remained optimistic.
Ogeberika filed that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Let's head back now to Monrovia as we join Darlington Popper for the newspaper review.
For this edition of Press Review, we are here with three newspapers from Liberia. They are the Front Page Africa newspaper, the New Dawn newspaper, and the News newspaper. So those are the three newspapers we will be going through for today's edition of Press Review. We will begin the review process with the Front Page Africa newspaper. Chief Justice embroidered inland dispute. We see the photograph of Chief Justice Sianayo and scores of disadvantaged youths. Stay on the Front Page Africa newspaper. Visa denial, a stupid claim. Unity Party vast tenure bearer dismisses recent report of visa denial as Malaysia propaganda spread by political rivals. On the back page of the Front Page Africa newspaper is all about sports. The New Dawn newspaper is next for reviews. Zogos protest demolition. Boaka declares drugs national emergency. Vow to wage war on drug trafficking. On the back page of the New Dawn newspaper, rescue mission is fake. CDC Chairman rallies citizens to re-elect WIA. Our last stop for this edition of Press Review is the News newspaper. Glorious caught in male cell, Assistant Justice Minister discloses. Deputy Minister Flomo highlights importance of national development agenda. Threat to national security, Boaka speaks on increase in drug users. On the back page of the News newspaper, Liberia deports important maritime instrument at Imoh. Only convention can expel or remove men, says Chairman Banding. That's internal wrangling that have ensued within the National Patriotic Party of jail former Liberian President Charles Taylor. House reaffirms commitment to drugs-free society. AML successfully rescued sinking vessel. That's ArcelorMittal Liberia. Minister Tar rallies extensive donor support to tackle SGBV women empowerment. With that, we conclude today's edition of Press Review. But before we go, these are the newspapers we actually followed on today's edition. We followed the Front Page Africa newspaper, the New Dawn newspaper, and the News newspaper was our last stop. Thank you so much for following Press Review, and bye-bye.
Many thanks there, Darlington Pauper with the newspaper review.
Politics,
Analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, we remain in Liberia to further look at the report we brought to you earlier in a bulletin where the International Labour Organization, ILO, expressed displeasure over the Liberian government's refusal to recognize the rights of public sector workers to freely join or form trade unions. In this interview with WDR, Moiba Johnson, the president of the Civil Servants Association of Liberia, corroborates the ILO accusation, noting that several attempts and requests have been put forward for the formation of trade unions but turned down by the Ministry of Labour.
Well, we really don't know where the fear factor is coming from, but yeah, that is exactly what is happening to us. The Labour Ministry, by at large, is blatantly refusing refusing to recognize us as such, as workers groupings in the country.
Has there been a request by the civil service or public workers to have a union like other countries in South Africa, Mali, Guinea, Nigeria, and the rest of them?
Numerous times, on numerous occasions, we have made some requests, both in written as well as spoken initiatives to see how we can be granted union status. And besides that, even as association, we feel that the Liberia Labour Congress, whose constitution obviously encapsulate all workers in the Republic of Liberia. Unfortunately, we have not been given that due recognition. As a matter of fact, the Labour Minister, currently as we speak, the current Labour Minister, Charles Gibson, has outrightly stated that under his watch, he will not see us being part of the Liberia Labour Congress. And the Liberia Labour Congress is the embodiment of all labor labor groupings in the Republic of Liberia, for which we think we are part of.
What do you think civil servants are losing out in this not having a union?
We are losing out so many opportunities from the International Labour Organization that has to help workers better themselves in terms of their advocacy, in terms of getting the right thing to be done in this country for workers. We are losing out programs, training programs, and what have you. So, as a matter of fact, the tripartite arrangement has been set up here in Liberia. It's not working effectively, because you have one minister that is serving as the demagogue that tends to control the other two, especially the other two members of the tripartite arrangement. You know, the labor in the labor arena, there are three bodies. You have the workers represented by the Labor Congress. You have the employer organization here in Liberia represented by the Chamber of Commerce, and of course, government within that tripartite is represented by the Ministry of Labor. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Labor has amassed onto itself the functions of the other, basically the function of the Liberia Labor Congress.
Well, election is just around the corner. Do you think this will also be some concerns for public servants that will be voting?
Oh, of course. That's why, in fact, some 3 months back, we made a clarion call to the president to get involved, the president of the Republic of Liberia, to get involved, either by sacking or removing or relieving Minister Gibson from his post, because we feel that he is intruding too much into workers' affairs in the Republic of Liberia, for which the working groupings have become fragmented. What he has done cleverly is that he is carrying on what we call the divide and rule method. He looks at a very weak labor grouping to interact with. In fact, when he, for example, they just concluded 111 ILC conference in Geneva, he took somebody that he felt comfortable with, within the labor arena, to take the person along, and the person went and represented the workers of Liberia, not according to our will, but according to the dictates of the Ministry of Labor.
Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for talking to us, and we wish you and your team all the best.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Thank you ever so much.
That was Mr. Moiba Johnson, the president of the Civil Servant Association of Liberia. And up next is Sport News.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Red Star Belgrade have signed Nigeria international Peter Olayinke, according to media reports. Star Belgrade officially announced the acquisition of the Nigerian striker from Slavia Prague, where he spent 5 years. The Super Eagles forward has signed a 3-year contract with Star, with an option to extend. The deal between the two clubs was set in motion earlier this year, with Olayinke signing a pre-contract agreement with Red Star Belgrade in January 2023, it has been reported. Meanwhile, Star Belgrade unveiled the Nigerian winger ahead of their new season. And in the CAF on the 23 Africa Cup of Nations fixtures for Tuesday, Ghana will take on Morocco and Guinea will entertain Congo. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sankli Janko there with Sport News. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM Banjul, and in Liberia on Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Yes, Bilimu has been on the console, and Mustafa Sek has been streaming. Many thanks to our production team. Do interact with us via social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, RWDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio, English Service. I am Imoh Edet. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all. 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio. 94.9 FM Dakar.